I live in a quiet suburban neighborhood where lawns are trimmed weekly. Dogs wear little sweaters in the winter, and everyone smiles just a bit too much. It's the kind of place where the HOA is a sacred institution, and at the center of it all is Karen. Karen is the self-appointed queen of the Homeowners Association. She doesn't just enforce the rules, she creates them. Mailboxes too faded? She'll fine you. Grass a centimeter too high? Expect a warning letter. Halloween decorations before October 1st? She'll knock on your door personally. But her latest offense wasn't about aesthetics. It was about territory. See, I live on a corner lot with a wide green lawn that curves gently to meet the road. It's not fenced in. It doesn't have to be. Or so I thought. That was until Karen started cutting the corner. Literally. Every time she drove her Range Rover home, she'd drive straight through the edge of my yard to save herself 3 extra seconds. And every time, she left a pair of deep, muddy tire tracks behind. The first time I thought it was an accident. The second time, I left a polite note. The third time, I confronted her. "You're damaging my property?" I said, trying to keep my voice calm. She looked at me like I'd told her to clean up after her own dog. "It's just grass. It'll grow back," she snapped, before revving off again, through my lawn. I tried everything. Solar lights, garden gnomes, even a low hedge of shrubs. But somehow, every attempt was either against HOA guidelines or mysteriously trampled overnight. That's when I got an idea. A petty, glorious, HOA-proof idea. I spent a weekend in my garage, crafting thin steel spikes, about 6 inches long, sharpened to a point. I attached them to small rubber mats and painted them the exact shade of my grass. Then, early Monday morning, I slid them into place, right where Karen's tires always passed. I waited. That evening, just as the sun dipped below the rooftops and the air filled with the chirping of crickets, I heard it. The satisfying hiss of air escaping a tire, followed by a loud, frustrated, "What the?" Karen had struck. I stood at my window, sipping tea, watching Karen step out of her SUV in disbelief. She crouched beside her front tire, completely flat, and then noticed the matching rear one. Her face twisted in outrage. I had never seen a woman in yoga pants and a visor look so murderous. She paced around her car, looking at the ground, at my house, back at the ground. I thought she might march up to my front door right then and there. Instead, she took out her phone and dialed, probably AAA, or the police. I stepped out onto my porch, expression as neutral as I could manage. "Trouble, Karen?" She narrowed her eyes at me like I was the one who'd just run over her lawn. "There's something in your yard. Sharp, illegal probably," she spat. I feigned surprise. "Oh no, that's odd. I've been having issues with raccoons. Maybe they dragged something in." I saw her nostrils flare. She didn't believe me, but she also didn't have proof. "Your spikes damaged my vehicle," she snapped. "Spikes?" I asked innocently. "I'm not aware of any spikes on my property, but you know, if your car was on the road, like it's supposed to be, it probably wouldn't have been damaged at all." That's when her face went red, not the embarrassed kind, the lawsuit incoming kind. The tow truck came, so did the HOA vice chair, whom she called in to report me for booby-trapping common space. But when they examined the lawn, they found nothing. I'd already pulled the mats out, replaced with a freshly watered patch of sod, courtesy of my pre-planned cleanup. "You can't prove anything," I said quietly to Karen, as the tow truck pulled away with her SUV, 2 wheels hanging limp. "This isn't over," she hissed. And she was right. It wasn't, because the next morning, I found a letter from the HOA in my mailbox, hand-delivered, no stamp, no envelope, just a single sheet of paper that read, "As of today, your lawn is under investigation for non-compliance. Expect weekly inspections." That's when I knew Karen was going to war. The weekly inspections began that Thursday. At precisely 8 a.m., Karen arrived, not in her now wheelless SUV, but in a golf cart plastered with an HOA official decal. She brought a clipboard, a tape measure, and a ruler. I watched from behind my curtain as she meticulously walked across my lawn, measuring grass height in several places, photographing my shrubs, and at one point, crouching to inspect what appeared to be a dandelion. She scribbled furiously into her clipboard, her lips pursed in vindication. That afternoon, I received an official notice from the HOA. Your lawn contains unauthorized plant growth. Please remove all weeds and reseed with HOA-approved grass mix within 7 days. I nearly laughed. Karen was trying to bury me in paperwork and fines. But what she didn't know was, I was prepared for this. I'd lived in this house for 6 years. I knew the HOA bylaws better than she did. I'd even helped revise them 2 years ago, when the original board members retired and Karen slithered in. I knew the loopholes, the ambiguities, the gray zones, so I got to work. I reseeded the lawn, with the exact mix recommended in the bylaw appendix. I trimmed the shrubs to HOA regulation symmetry. I even hired a landscaping company for one afternoon, just so they'd leave a professionally maintained sign in my yard. When Karen came by for her next inspection, she found nothing. Worse, for her, I'd installed a tiny white picket barrier, 6 inches tall, 3 feet from the road edge. Decorative, of course. HOA approved. But it would prevent any tires from ever rolling over the grass again. Karen stood in front of the barrier, seething. "You're mocking the system," she said without looking at me. "I'm following the rules," I replied with a smile. "To the letter." She looked at me then, eyes squinted in the sun. "Then let's see how long you can keep it up." I realized then, this wasn't just a feud over property anymore. This was personal. And Karen? She was just getting started. Karen escalated. Over the next 2 weeks, I received no fewer than 5 HOA citations, improper mulch color, an unauthorized wind chime, and even a complaint that my porch light was too bright and disruptive to the aesthetic tone of the neighborhood.
Each time I responded with detailed appeal letters, photos, and page references from the HOA handbook. Each time the citation was voided, begrudgingly, but then Karen overplayed her hand. One morning, I stepped outside to find a city inspector talking to her in my driveway. She waved at me smugly. "This is the gentleman I told you about," she said. "There may be some code issues with his lawn, potential drainage violations, dangerous objects under the soil." The inspector turned to me, clipboard in hand. "Sir, do you mind if I take a look?" "Not at all," I said. "Would you like to start with the documents I have? Soil reports, landscaping permits, photos from the past 6 months?" He blinked. "You have all that?" I led him into my garage, where I had a plastic file box labeled Karen Countermeasures. He looked through the papers, increasingly confused. "Everything here's compliant," he finally said, flipping the folder shut. "And that decorative barrier? Smart. Keeps vehicles off the lawn, avoids erosion. I wish more homeowners did that." Karen's mouth hung slightly open. "Is there a problem here, ma'am?" the inspector asked her. She stammered. He's setting traps." "Traps? Spikes. He put spikes in his grass." The inspector turned to me. "Is that true?" I smiled. "Not anymore." Karen's face turned a dangerous shade of red. The inspector sighed. "If there's no proof, there's no case." He left. She stormed off, but she wasn't done. Oh no. That night, my motion-activated camera captured her sneaking into my yard under the cover of darkness, with a trash bag in hand. She sprinkled something across my lawn, then darted back into the street. By morning, my grass was yellowed, curling at the edges, dead in patches. She'd used some kind of chemical. This time, I didn't go to the HOA. I went to the police. With video evidence and the destroyed lawn, they paid her a visit. Within 48 hours, Karen was issued a citation for trespassing and vandalism. I heard her yelling from her front porch as the officer handed her the paperwork. A week later, the HOA board held an emergency vote. Karen was removed as chair. She sold her house 2 months later. I replanted my lawn. It grew back greener than ever. Sometimes I stand on my porch and look at the perfect green edge of the grass where her tires used to roll. The picket barrier still stands, so do the solar lights. And deep beneath the surface, in a sealed plastic box I buried for fun, are the original steel spikes. My little trophy. Peace has returned. But the lesson remains. Don't mess with the quiet neighbor at the corner lot.